Hello, everybody. How are we doing today? I'm trying to see if I'm actually live and if I can hear myself from my phone. So I'm going to do that for like a second. Um, I hope you're doing well. It's a beautiful day. I feel like it's a beautiful day every time we're doing a live. The sun is up. Everything is really just perfect. All right, let's check on this. Okay, it looks like I am on. Okay, perfect. How are you? Welcome. Welcome, everybody. And if you're not able to join today, please feel free to comment or DM me with any questions or anything that you would like to hear more about. So, um, today we're talking about something that has become central to both my personal and my professional life. And really not because calm feels nice, because it does, but also because calm changes how we think, how we communicate, and how we lead when pressure is at its highest. Most leadership development actually focus on skills, hard skills, and recently even more so on soft skills. And skills matter, of course, but they're only part of the equation for me. The question that I'm mostly interested in is, who are you when the pressure rises? Because pressure doesn't really create leadership, obviously, it reveals it. And often what it's revealed, it's not a lack of capability, but it's a lack of access to our best thinking. The way I see it, calm is a quality of being. It is not something you do as you would do a task to check it off your list. It is actually a consequence of who you have become. So instead of thinking, how do I practice calmness? It's better to direct your attention on becoming calm, changing your whole being and embody this calmness, because it's a human quality. And so you don't have to actually wear calmness for this meeting or for this conversation. You actually are calm. You become calm, right? Marcus Aurelius was saying so nicely, the nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closest he is to strength. Yes, please. So if we could all tap into this, right? But we do operate through the filters we've developed over times, and the beautiful part is that filters can change if we became aware of them, right? And the way we perceive ourselves and others, and also our circumstances as we go through life, are changing. But if we accept that is just who I am, we actually stop growing. The way we perceive ourselves and others, it's not the same when you're 20, and it's not the same when you're 40. I'm not saying I'm 40. Maybe I am. Anyway, so if we ask ourselves, who do I want to become instead, things are starting to shift a little bit. So, you know me. Actually, a lot of people on my list know me personally, which is very nice. And people often describe me as calm. The truth is that calm has always been a natural part of who I am. And even growing up, I was actually more on the reflective side than reactive, and most likely to observe things. But what actually fascinated me, kind of going through life, is noticing that during certain periods of my life, especially when it was a lot of pressure, calm became hardest to access. It didn't really disappear, but it was sort of covered up temporarily by pressure, fear, uncertainty, and all these old patterns that will come up. So, this realization actually changed the way I think about leadership, because I stopped seeing calm as a personality trait. And some people have it and some people don't, but I started to see it as a human quality, something that exists in every single one of us, and something that we can strengthen and we can return to. And over the years, I actually have become increasingly curious about what pulls us away from calm and what helps us reconnect to it. So that curiosity kind of led me to study a lot of things: leadership, psychology, mindfulness, emotional intelligence, behavior changes, but also spirituality. And eventually it led me here today. The work that I do today is really rooted in this belief that calm is not a weakness. It's not passivity. It's not reserved for a lucky few. It's actually a quality of being that allows us to think more clearly, trust ourselves more deeply, and navigate life with a greater wisdom. And that's what we are going to talk about today. So I posted this poll before the conversation today, and immediately I realized that 87% of the people who responded overthinking was really their first immediate response. How do you react under pressure when the pressure rises? Okay, so it seems like the live are going, and if you have comments, please do put them in the comment section, and I will check on them a little bit later. So if you chose overthinking, it's very common. It's a very common thing. It's important because overthinking is often misunderstood. Most people think it's really a thinking problem because it's called overthinking, and obviously that leads to more thinking, more thinking, more thinking. But often, overthinking is really a protection strategy. The mind starts to search for certainty. And that means it's trying to eliminate risk, trying to really guarantee the right outcome and avoid mistakes. And really, that's protection, right? But if and when you become aware of how you respond, all of a sudden you have the opportunity to understand the patterns. Because once you understand it, you can change it. Boom. We know that. Okay, so most leadership challenges are not capability challenges, they're belief challenges. The behavior is visible, of course, and the belief is hidden. If you have missed, I believe last month's live, we spent about 45 minutes talking about beliefs. So we can go back and check on that. But a lot of people and a lot of high achievers or leaders spend years trying to solve the behavior without ever examining the beliefs driving it. And until we understand the belief, we will keep repeating the symptom instead of looking at the source. Okay, and we keep treating that symptom without actually changing anything. So, what's happening underneath the behavior? Overthinking sounds like I need more information. I should think about this longer. What if I'm missing something? Does that sound familiar? Because it really does for me. But underneath all of this, what it is I cannot make any mistakes. I must prove myself, and my worth really depends on getting this right. So the first belief that will stand out, kind of like an overarching thing, is I am not worth it unless I do everything perfectly. Speaking of being a perfectionism. Okay, sometimes it's more than thinking, and it's anxiety. And anxiety often looks like more analysis, more planning, more checking, more preparation, ultimately more thinking. But I'm not thinking about the anxiety from a clinical perspective, but the anxiety that many leaders experience when uncertainty appears. That discomfort of not knowing, the fear of making the wrong decisions, the fear of disappointing people, the fear of losing credibility. So we're trying to solve uncertainty through more thinking. But the certainty isn't something solved through thought. Sometimes it's actually navigated through trust. Anxiety actually pulls us into the future. But leadership and actually life happens in the present, happens now. Unease, anxiety, tension, stress, and all form of fear are caused by too much future and not enough presence. Eckhart Tolle wrote about this in his book. I think it's called Present or The Power of Now, actually. It's called The Power of Now. So the more time we spend mentally rehearsing possible outcome, outcomes, the less available we become to what is actually happening right now. And when we are not present, we lose access to our best judgment. So at this point, we might assume that the problem is simply the anxiety. But here's another layer. Pressure actually changes how we process information, which makes many of these patterns even more likely to appear. So, anxiety often creates delayed decisions, mental fatigue, over explaining, perfectionism, reduced pressure, and difficulty trusting ourselves. Research shows that pressure changes how we process information. Our attention actually narrows. We focus more on potential threats. We become more attached to certainty, more dependent on familiar patterns, and less open to possibilities. This actually doesn't mean that we're less intelligent, and it doesn't really mean that we've suddenly lost our skills or our experience. It means we have less access to them. And that matters because when leaders or high achievers struggle under pressure, they often assume something is wrong with them. So they think, why can't I figure this out? Why am I second guessing? Why does it feel harder than it should be? And the reality is often much simpler. Under pressure, we often experience this narrow thinking, increased risk sensibility, reduced cognitive flexibility, lower quality decisions, of course, because you're rushing, and less effective communication. What pressure really reveals? Pressure doesn't really create a new version of us, right? It exposes the version that was already operating beneath the surface. The habits, the emotional patterns, the assumptions, the beliefs. So, we talked a little bit earlier about how pressure actually changes performance. So we saw that research shows that it narrows our thinking. And this is important because pressure doesn't really reduce capability, it just reduces the access. The access to what? To clarity, access to perspective, to discernment, to self trust. Just 1 second, guys. Okay. Okay, so we're losing access to self trust. When the access narrows, our existing patterns become easier to see, right? Because you'll see this kind of play out. The people pleaser may seek more approval, the perfectionist may overthink. The controller may actually struggle to let go. That we see this so much. The avoider may actually withdraw. I'm out of here. See you. Bye. So what's happening is that pressure really shines a light on what it's already there. That's why pressure can be such a powerful teacher. It gives us an opportunity to become aware of the patterns that are shaping our leadership, even without realizing it. And once we see the pattern, we have the opportunity to change it. And this happens in a lot of high pressure moments when something is triggered into you, when you find yourself more reactive than reflective. And that is an opportunity for you to be like, wait a second, what is happening here? Why am I reacting like this? What in me is sensitive to this scenario? Okay, what is something in me that's sensible to what this person said or done? So it's an opportunity for introspection. Not the most fun thing to do, but very, 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 very efficient. Calm is also a form of trust. If pressure reveals our patterns and anxiety kind of pulls us away from clarity, what helps us lead differently? And for me, the answer comes down to trust. And what's fascinating is that pressure doesn't just affect performance. As we said, it reveals the belief, it reveals the assumptions, it reveals the habits. And now, what I see, from where I am, is that leadership and spirituality intersect here for me. And it's not about some religious dogmas and some positive thinking. It's about trust, and trust in your ability to respond, trust in your values, trust in your wisdom, trust in life unfolding without needing to control every outcome. Well, that's something, right? But you are already doing this, right? You already trust that you will wake up tomorrow. You already trust that your heart will keep beating. You already trust that the sun will come out, right? You already trust a lot of things without even consciously thinking about it. But a lot of people, a lot of high achievers, a lot of leaders spend enormous amount of energy trying to eliminate uncertainty. Uncertainty is part of leadership and actually part of life, right? And the goal is not to remove uncertainty. The goal is to strengthen your ability to meet uncertainty. It's okay if we do not know everything. It really is. When trust grows, actually, calm becomes more available. So, really, the circumstances don't change, but we stop requiring certainty before we move forward. You're stepping into trust. Calm isn't valuable because it's pleasant, but definitely it is. It's valuable because it changes what becomes available to us. Because when we are calm, we see more, we hear more, we become less attached to immediate answers and more capable of making aligned decisions. What calms gives us access to can be and is perspective, discernment, better decisions, better questions, emotional agility, strategic thinking, and presence. Presence is a big one because think about presence as a quality of a human being that you can only experience if you are talking to them directly or if you're seeing them in action. For example, if you go to see a speaker or a singer or someone in a live concert, in a live event, you are there because you want to experience them, right? I went to see Mel Robbins. I think she was in Chicago last year, and she did a tour for her book Let Them Theory, and I didn't go to hear about the book. I didn't go to hear about her ideas about some things in the book because I already know her work. I know her podcast, I know her book. What I wanted to experience was Mel Robbins. So if you want to go see Tony Robbins, or if you want to go Beyonce, you want to see Beyonce or whoever, you want to experience them. That is the presence of a person, right? And it's a little bit different than what you know. Obviously, it's who you are. It's who you are. Okay, so there's a framework that I like to refer to when we talk about calm clarity. If you were to think about a current challenge rather than a theoretical one, this framework is very helpful to kind of go through it. The goal here is really not to find a perfect answer, but to increase awareness. Awareness is where change begins. And really, the intention changes where you arrive. That sounds very practical. Ah, well, but so we start with pausing. The first step is pausing. You have the chance to override default programs you use if you take a moment to pause. Okay, so you calm and it gives you the opportunity to kind of straighten your thinking. And then you move into observing. This observance, it really is into moving the observer role, kind of into being aware of your thoughts, being aware how you actually talk. What is driving this? You're just observing at this stage. Then you clarify, which is actually a very important step because what you're doing, you have the opportunity here to separate assumptions versus truth. So if you have an assumption about someone who says, someone who does or complained all the time, and they call in with another complaint, and you have the tendency to say, and we all do, I'm sure, oh, this person always complains. I'm sure it's nothing. Try to put that on the side and try to take the facts in. This is what happened. That's actually a real thing, right? So we're separating our stories from the facts. Okay. And then we choose something that's aligned and that's intentional, okay, to solve this particular problem. And then we go into communicating that to the team or communicating that to the person you're working with to actually play out this decision, right? So it's a very important framework. I do understand that there is a difference between emergency situations, but as I said earlier, if you are to practice a way to train yourself and train your nervous system, that there's a way to actually calm down and to approach things differently, this becomes sort of a second nature. Okay, you kind of just roll into it. So we talked about calm like a leadership advantage so far. We get better decisions, we get better communication, greater trust, more influence, and all of this matters. But I actually don't want to end it here because for me, calm is actually deeply connected to spirituality. And I'm not talking about spirituality as a belief system, but I'm talking about spirituality as presence, the ability to be fully here instead of constantly rushing towards what's going to happen next, right? And I've noticed that the most meaningful moments in life are rarely the biggest moments. They're actually the smallest, right? The conversation that arrives at exactly the same time you need it. An unexpected act of kindness, a sunrise, a laugh with someone you love, a moment of gratitude in an otherwise ordinary day. Those are changing how you see life, right? But when we're trapped in urgency and we often miss these moments because we are physically present, but we are mentally somewhere else. We're already planning and worrying and solving and in a constant state of rush. But what's happening is calm actually creates space to notice and to appreciate and to experience life that is actually happening. And when we do, life actually feels richer and more meaningful, more connected. So, my invitation is really simple for you. Don't pursue calm only because it makes you feel better or if it makes you a better leader. Pursue calm because it helps you become more present in your life. Because some of the most beautiful things we'll ever experience are not hidden in the future. They're already here. They're just waiting to be noticed. So, calm, we talked about calm. Calm is something that is available to us. So, the question now becomes how do we access it? And there are three simple practices that I come back to. And the first one is very simple. You have to consciously choose calm. And this may actually sound too simple, but every reaction begins with a moment of awareness. We may not control what's happening around us, but we can begin to notice when we are reactive instead when we are responding. And sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is actually pause, right? And remind ourselves, I don't have to react to this right now, right? Allow ourselves to consciously remember that there is another option. Okay, there is another option. The second practice is to interrupt the thoughts. When you get into overthinking, anxiety actually gets fed more and more and more. And it grows through stories. What if this goes wrong? What if I disappoint someone? What if I fail? So one thought becomes another and another. And before we know it, we've created a whole entire future that, by the way, does not exist, right? So instead of following that chain of thoughts, pause and ask yourself, is this thought helping me? Is this serving me? Or what else could be true? It's really not it sounds easy, and it is easy if you practice it, right? And this interruption of thoughts actually creates this space for clarity and calms to return. Okay. The third practice, which is creating probably the biggest impact, is to reconnect to love. And when I particularly feel overwhelmed, I intentionally bring to mind someone I deeply love. a child, a family member, someone whose presence make me immediately soften my heart, okay? Because the feeling of love actually shifts something inside of us, and we relax. We all of a sudden start to get more possibilities into our view, and our perspective actually widens. The problem really hasn't changed, right? But we have. Okay, so love and this feeling of love is the fastest way to return to calm. And it doesn't make it makes our life easier, of course, but it reminds us also what is true, what matters, who are we beyond this moment of pressure, right? So calm isn't something I force. It's really something I remember. And every time I return to it, I regain access to clarity and wisdom and presence that, as we said at the beginning, temporarily covers up the quality of calm. So that is why I believe calm is not something we earn, it's something we return to. And we do that by having one and doing one conscious choice at a time. And one actually additional practice that I use when I notice myself becoming reactive is something that I learned from Dr. John Diamond, and it's called the timeless reset. I don't know if you know about it, but you tap on the upper chest while you're taking slow breaths. So whatever is the rhythm or the breathing, or it's maybe the intention of this movement, it helps interrupt the stress responses in your body and reconnect to a calmer state. So you don't have to use this particular technique. The principle is that it's important to just know, to create a deliberate interruption of whatever is going on that reminds your mind and body they don't have to stay in that reactive state. Life is happening while we are busy preparing for it. What a paradox, right? We're working, we're solving, we're planning, we're achieving, we're worrying, and life is happening. Life is happening now, and it's happening in the moment you work. And it's very important to look at the quality of how you live your life. So we talked about how pressure can narrow your thinking and reveal the patterns and reduce access to our best judgment. But perhaps the most important idea I want to leave you today is, what if calm isn't something you have to earn? What if it is already available for you? And not because your circumstances change, not because uncertainty suddenly disappears, but because everything finally goes according to plan. Not happening, right? Not because of that. Because, as we said, I said this at the beginning, right? Calm is a quality that already exists in you. It's a state that you can return to again and again. And many of us actually spend years believing we'll feel calm when we'll accomplish more, when the workload eases, when the problem is solved, when life becomes, let's say, more predictable. But what if calm isn't waiting on the other side of those things? What if calm is available right here in the middle of uncertainty, right? In the middle of responsibility, in the middle of an unfinished life? Because we're playing it out right now. When we reconnect to the place of calm, when we often become connected to ourselves, we become more connected to others and to something deeper within us. And that part is actually wise and it's intuitive, and the part already knows more than we sometimes give it credit for. And perhaps calm is not only a leadership strategy, perhaps it's another way of living, a different relationship with ourselves, a different relationships with our work, a different relationship with the world around us. So as you live today, I invite you to carry this question with you. What if calm isn't something you have to earn? What if it's already available? And notice what changes when you stop chasing calm and you start remembering it. Okay, what becomes possible for you, right? So calm is not a destination; it's an option. It's a choice. It's a way of being that is available to you. So thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time. But also remember, calm is the strategy. All right, thank you guys. Talk to you soon.